All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just notifying some people that I'm online. One of which happens to be Brujo um, Luis, and he's actually the man that inspired me to look into Brujeria, at least that this religion. So, and I do want to point out that I am by no means a practitioner of this religion. Okay. So I may butcher some of the names associated with this type of witchcraft. Okay, so I'm just waiting a little bit here because I want to see who jumps on with me. I did send Brujo Luis a notification that and a link to this particular video because I'm actually doing this to honor him. Okay. He is a great sorcerer, a warlock, and a practitioner. He and I seem to have a lot in common too, so it's kind of cool to see. Now, I actually had to go in and do a lot of research. I covered everything from pop culture to different regions of the world, from Santa Domingo to Mexico to the US, to find the information that I was looking into. I even went into the Santeria practice, okay, because I know that in Santeria that Brujeria is actually known, and it's in some cases it's known as magic spell. Other times it's referred to as witchcraft. Okay, in Mexico, it's witchcraft in general. Certain authors, like just say for an example, this one author, Magine Gonzalez Whippler, who wrote these two books, okay, speak about Brujeria. Okay. For an example, Santeria, the religion, literally goes in and let me go back here. I'm going to get to the bees. Brujeria, a magic spell in witchcraft. Okay. And I found it interesting that in this one, however, African magic in Latin America only refers to Brujeria as witchcraft, not a magic spell. So that was kind of interesting word wise. Okay. So since we've been here now for 4.5 minutes, as of now, why don't we begin? I've got 7 pages of notes to go by. So Brujeria is known as, or pronounced as, Brujor. This is Brujer. Okay. From Haitian Voodoo, Cuban Santeria, Brazilian Kindobel. I'm not really sure what that is. To Umbanda. All basically are African Caribbean traditions that literally inspired the creation of Brujeria. And this is where this actually emerged from. For an example, is Isabella Zenon Cruz made an assessment that Puerto Rican Verna Kular, like I said, I probably just butchered this, religions only studied folklorists, but not comparative religionists, due to classic or classist and racist assumptions. Basically, any Latino, African Latino religions is basically what he was referring to. So basically, the statement was saying was that if you're following this one portion, it was from a Catholic or Christianized perspective, seeing it as evil, painful, lesser magic. You know, think of white magic versus black magic. White magic and those who practice it view it as superior. Okay. Whereas the competitive religionists, like I said, view themselves as superior. Okay. So anything associated during this time period that this was written in, you're looking at things such as the slave aspects. Okay. Slavehood. Now, we see that unlike the other Caribbean religions, Brujeria has no stable community, membership, or hierarchy. Now, this I found very, very interesting and enlightening because I did not know this. Okay, it instead is based upon actual preferences in the attending participants. Okay, more so, which was kind of interesting, is that unlike most practicing African Caribbean traditions, I found it very interesting that they have their own altars. Okay, they refer to them as sacred altars. Okay, they don't have these big houses. You know, they don't have actual shrines that are built for public use. Instead, it's more solitary in nature. Basically, sacred altars, lessons of practitioners, and Brujeria rituals tie into African ideologies, Catholicism, and spiritualism. Okay, that was something that I found very interesting because up until now, I've been heavily influenced by Palo Mayombe, Santeria, Santa Morte, stuff like this. So even Voodoo, Haitian Voodoo, big fan of. Okay. So to get into Brujeria and to actually see where this comes from, and I mean, we're talking this tradition literally goes back to the 1500s. The Taino Indians. This is Taino. Okay, and like I said at the beginning, I'm probably going to be butchering some of these names. And enslaved peoples of Puerto Rico believed post spiritualism, by the way, that spirits exist and could be communicated with. And this literally is how things got tied in with necromancy and other spiritual perspectives, such as chiromancy, okay, divination, for an example, not just communicating with spirits in general. This is where spiritual worship was introduced by the Catholics, okay, when they entered into the region, okay, and this was around Santo Domingo, not just the Dominican Republic or Haiti in general. It's throughout the entire Caribbean regions. Brujeria can be traced to the early 15th century in Santo Domingo, like I said, where we see the recollections of the Archbishop Bishop Nicholas Ramos, okay, talking upon Black Brujos, which is male and female, taking part in rites associated with the devil in the form of a goat. Now, this is actually, I don't know what it is about Christians and goats, but just about every tradition, you see the association with goats, okay, from their perspective. I don't get it. I really don't. But if we go further and we go into the 16th to the 18th century and into the 19th, the people were forced to convert after being taken to what is known as, and this is a word that I'm probably going to butcher the most here because it's spelled Hacendados. Okay, Heckin Dados. Okay, uh, and here you want to think things like mines, facilities, and estates. Okay, this is basically the houses or plantations. Okay, things where the people were delivered to work. All right, but with the 18th and 19th occupation of America within Cuba, this is where we see the attacks to undermine the African Caribbean religions within its how should I say this? They're not just undermining at this point; they are literally trying to separate. The separation between the Creolized tradition and the Cuban identity. Okay, now this is where the tradition went from being an isolated situation to becoming a more confrontational perspective of Brujeria practices, and it's manifested in divination and or deviation used within conformity from past eras. Okay, between 1959 and 1990, practitioners had to find innovated, okay, innovated ways to keep the African Caribbean traditions alive in what is known today as the Marxism. Okay, this is Marxism. Okay, aka social economic through Castro's political informants. Okay, this was basically the time when it was most brutal to be a brujo or a uh, was it brujo and brua. Okay, from the 20th century, we see an increase of all backgrounds. Okay, also this new age brought forth new rituals and practices such as healings, blessings, spiritual cleansings, prayers, and spells, and such like that. And they all had, for an example, the healing blessings, the Sant de Guios, Santiguos, spiritual cleansings, 19 dispose Joes, Despojos. Now, keep in mind, I don't really speak Spanish fluently. I only know a few things that I've picked up over the years. To prayers and spells. Now, the Vatican, aka Catholics, refer to Brujeria as being the evil Satanism. Now, I found this is pretty much interesting, and since the 1950s has increased its demonizing attacks. Okay, now the practice of Brujeria does not forge is not forged around initiates or heretical based practices and doesn't participate in community events, even though it's in Puerto Rican, they are gaining more momentum in what has become known as the separ- separatist separatist ideals. And in Mexico, the church rejects, or basically, how should I say this? They strongly suggest you stay away, okay, from the association with witchcraft, any dealings with witchcraft. Yet there is known witch markets where the Brujo and Bruja sell their stocks, their services, and their remedies, and just about everything you can get your hands on, including rituals and back rooms. Now, what I find interesting here is that if you go here on YouTube, you'll find all kinds of videos surrounding, brujeria and practices. And when you get into things like Santeria or Palo Mayumbi, you're going to see law enforcement, type outlooks on it, or you'll find people like, how should I say this? Think of it more as shamans, medicine men, and documentary type individuals, including priests, who stock up on their anti witchcraft bags and kits. Okay, not just those who actually practice these types of religions. The Brujos basically stress not to believe in ritualistic objects or hold too much, how should I say this, providence or premise in material representations. Instead, they view the powers of the entities and the messages received. Okay, I mean, we see this also in pop culture, such as Paranormal Activity, the Marked Ones, True Blood, the Azulia, for an example. What's her name? Was it Azulia? I want to say Banks, which is on Instagram, by the way. Um, 2015 and 16 area, you see a rapper by the name of Princess Nokia. Okay, a rapper. The movie Hellboy or Bad Boys for Life, which all use or associate brujeria practices, which I found very interesting. And coming from somebody who loves the paranormal activity ones, that one is actually one of the best of that series, in my opinion. We also see books and other things like The Magic and Mysteries of Mexico, 1994, by Spruce L. The Local Religion in 16th Century Spain, 1989, by Christian W.A. Jr. We also see The Witcher, I think I misspelled that word, by the way. Advocate, which is by, it's basically Basque witchcraft and the Spanish Inquisition. It takes place in around the 16th century, which is 1980s by Hender Skin. It's SCEN at the end. G. Okay. The Teaching of Don John, 1968. And then there's actually a few plays that speak to Bulgaria as well. And I found that very interesting. And I'm actually going to be looking into these, by the way, the plays and everything. Santeria, the religion, like I said, speak to it as the magic spell and witchcraft, the African magic in Latin America, associating as just plain witchcraft. Bruja means witch. Okay, it is Bruja, also spelled Bruha, by the way. And then you have the Brujo, which means sorcerer, witch doctor, shaman, worker of black magic, and say, for an example, warlock. I know a lot of you who are watching this are most likely coming at this from a white light practitioner's perspective or a Wiccan or pagan perspective. And if you've not done your homework on the etymology of the regions that speak on what a warlock is, you're probably going to be going, wait, a warlock is an oath breaker and betrayer. Okay? But that's not actually the case. It is a male equivalent to the witch. Okay? And Brujeria is actually one of the very few traditions out there that literally speak to both the male and female being equals. Okay, even though in today's practices, everything that I've gathered state that there are more female practitioners than there are male right now. And for example, in 1989, Brujeria is seen as a extreme metal band formed in LA. The Brujo and Bruja in the Middle Ages, the term which could be traced to the Celtic and Iberian, was derived by Catalan Bruxia. Okay, found that very interesting. The etymology and the terminology, not just the spelling and where they came from. Very interesting. In 1838, Novel, Mexico versus Texas, a U.S. soldier described his enemies' work as within Brujeria. Okay, 1888. Okay, the Smithsonian Institute noted that the Apache ceremonies related to that of Brujeria, or at least was a depiction thereof. Okay. Anthropologists and socialists down to law enforcement. You remember I mentioned that earlier. Of the 20th century, from a criminologist's perspectives, view occult crimes associated with Brujeria. Okay. Now, I find this interesting because of the fact that, hey, Ross Damon, I found this very interesting because if you go into YouTube and you type in Palo Mayumbi, you have secret organizations, or at least those public organizations that go around looking for occult crimes. You go into Malawi and you see a task force set up for occult crimes. You go back to the early or the 90s, late 80s. Okay, and you got the Satanic Panic, where everything was associated with occult crimes. So to see here in the 20th century, and this is literally is around the time of 1950s to the 1970s, or at least 80s in general, just in Brujeria alone. Okay, in let's see, that is from the herbal lore, was associated with both Catholicism and Brujeria in 1950s. In 1979, a social paper, the word was actually one of those weird ones, so I didn't write the whole thing down. But it was social paper, basically explained that Brujeria and was basically targeted specifically by the church, the Vatican, because of the time period where they were being forced to convert to the church. They were trying to convert the indigenous people of the regions. Now, like I said, this is not just in Cuba or Santo Domingo, it's also in South America, Central America, and North America. Okay, so you got a wide range of various different viewpoints of Brujeria. The 21st century, Latino and African American women openly embraced the practice of Brujeria. Like I said, Princess Nakia, the rapper, 2015 and 2016. I don't know if this rapper is still around. But, and then you have a radio station that was actually kind of like a talk show that was actually based off Les Brujo. Was it Brujo? I think it was Brujeria. I can't remember what the name of it was offhand, but it was pretty cool to see a radio station named after this. So, as you can see, there was a lot of history, a rich history behind this religion. Now, from what I understand about the practitioners of Brujeria, is they're much like the Bokor or the Warlock, but they're solitary practitioners. Some of them even come from a hereditary family lineage. It's passed down from generation to generation, whereas others simply come in and there's no annotationary process. There's no coven, because basically, from what I gather from the research that I've done so far, is that this particular religion is a worldwide, assembly. It is basically a worldwide coven, from what I can gather. It's not a particular house like in Vudan or Palo Mayumbi, for an example, or Santeria. They're solitary practitioners who perform healing arts. They perform prayers, cleansings, and all this stuff. Now, Brujo Luis, I've been following his work now for a couple of years. Okay, very impressed with his channel, his knowledge of what he does. Okay, as a black arts practitioner, I can tell you that I've had a lot of good conversations with him, a few good conversations, and I wrote on one of his posts one day. I can't remember what I said, but he came back and he said, "Oh, you're just an occultist. Okay, you're just an occultist." Okay, that's all he said. And I have to say, at first it kind of struck me funny because, what do you mean by that? A lot of people would take that as a witch war, starter, but no. It was the thing was is he was right. I mean, I am coming at this from an occultist perspective, because number one, my background is Satanism, okay, demonolatry. You got witchcraft, shamanism. You've got Haitian Voodoo, which I've recently gotten into, necromancy, which I got back into over the last 2 years. Okay, you got Palo Mayumbi and Santeria and Santa Morte that I've been practicing for 10 years. Okay, so in a sense, I'm working with seals, sigils, spiritual entities such as demons, jinn. Okay, so he's not far off. He's not wrong on that. I am coming at this from an occultist perspective and a view, and he's right about that. So when I was watching his channel, there's a lot of things that he has done over the years, and I can tell you that the first video that I saw of his, which really caught my attention, was the one on witchcraft by Anastasia. Okay, where he was giving a book review when I was looking underneath the term warlock, because of the fact that I didn't have my notes in front of me because I couldn't find them. Okay. Now, I was in a conversation with some people at the time, and I ended up going in and doing research underneath the term warlock. Now, as you just seen, Brujo, or Bru, yeah, was it Brujo? Yeah, it is considered to be a sorcerer, a warlock, a shaman. Okay, this is something that you don't expect, especially when you get into a couple years down the line, seeing this. Okay, so the more I watched his YouTube videos, the more I was inspired by him. Okay, and I have to freely say that about him because he has a lot of good knowledge, from the creation of war water to the dispersion and disarming of accursed items. Things that would come out like, say, a Griskus bag for hexcraft, cursing. Okay, to the creation of certain brews. Okay, This is something that a lot of traditions really do practice. But you don't see somebody getting into the level of in depth of the creation, the actual actions of the creation of these things, showing you how to create these things. Out of every video that I've seen on Brujeria, I can tell you that there's only one that I would trust, and that's Brujo Luis. Okay? Because this is why. Number one, he's not bullshitting you. Number two, he knows his stuff. And number three, he's not afraid to, tell you what's on his mind. I like that about him. Okay? And when he gets into literally teaching you, he's teaching you from his experience, his background. Okay? You don't see this very often, especially in today's world. He is, in my opinion, an elder. He is a teacher. And he is very good at what he does. So I wanted to do this video for him, to honor him and his teachings and what he has done so far. Those of you who are not familiar with him, okay, look him up on YouTube, okay? Look him up on Facebook. Now, I don't know if he's on things like Twitter or Instagram. If he's anything like me, he's not on Twitter. Namely, because I just don't understand it. But still, um, I would definitely look him up, okay? Watch his videos, take notes, because you will learn a lot, okay? I've learned more about Brujeria from his videos than any of the other ones that I've watched, okay? That I've studied and tried to understand. It does help to speak Spanish, though. I will tell you that. So, but like I said, get in touch with him, look him up, for his services if you want. I would recommend that you subscribe to his channel. Really go back into all his videos. Have a nice thick notepad because you're going to need it. Okay? I can't tell you how many notebooks that I've gone through just on his videos. Okay? Things that caught my attention that I had to go in and research. Okay? Like I said, he knows his stuff. And he's the only practitioner that I would turn to and believe in. All right? But this has been a history and a mythological perspective on Brujeria. Okay? And I did this for him. Okay? In his honor. One of the other things that I would recommend that you look into is the Orisha. Okay? The Orisha are similar to the Loa, but more in the Latin Cuban perspective. Okay, things like Umbanda, Quimbanda, Santeria, Pedo Mayumbi, okay, Macumba, even. These are Central African based traditions that have literally inspired this great religion, this great philosophy to be created. And I can tell you just from what I've seen, the rituals and everything that have been put forth are very potent and very powerful. So I would recommend that if you do jot down notes from his videos, that you pay close attention to what he's saying while he's showing you how to prepare them, because you're going to need them. All right. And yes, I have practiced a couple of them myself, just a few. Not everything, just a few, because it's better to master a few than to get a whole bunch wrong. Okay. So if you do get into his work and you do start practicing what he's been teaching, take notes, extensive notes, do your research, and really delve deep into the study and practice, not just the experimentation. You're going to need it. All right. This has been a video on Brujeria, the religion. I hope it's been insightful. Hope it's been enlightening, educational, even. And I hope that you guys do get into the research mode and pick up some of the books. Get into YouTube, get into Google, even subscribe to his channel, especially if this path speaks to you on a personal level. Okay? I know that it spoke to me some of the way, which is why I've researched it. All right? With that said, have a good night, and until next time.